not very successful, do they?
Hello there. Have you got any female beds over there? It's the arm moment, say it.
Hospital beds have never been so precious. Finding the spare ones can be time-consuming for hospital staff and GPs.
Last week, I had to get a patient in who was quite ill. I phoned 2, 3 of the local hospitals, explained to the doctor on duty exactly why I wanted the patient to be admitted, explained the patient had been there before. They said, I'm sorry, try the other hospital. I phoned the other hospital, explained exactly the same thing to the junior doctor on duty. And when I finished, they said, well, we'd like to help you, but we haven't got any beds. I phoned the 3rd hospital in desperation, exactly the same thing.
Rosie, it's about Margaret.
What I think we have to do is to learn from the experience of those hospitals which appear to have coped reasonably well in recent times by using their beds and their staff more efficiently, by anticipating perhaps rather better than some other hospitals the peak in demand that's occurred.
Kingsmill Hospital in North Nottinghamshire is one such example. Doctors here haven't had to cancel a single operation, even though here too emergency admissions have broken all records.
We've got so many patients coming in that we had to actually have men on the gynae ward, which is not ideal at all and is something that we would never plan for. But the commitment was to keep it open, and we had to do it. This obviously causes problems from the nursing staff point of view. These nurses are very skilled in looking after gynecology problems. They're not necessarily used to looking after acute medically ill patients, and gentlemen at that.
Sharp scratch coming up then. That's it. Just going to take a drop now.
This is Kingsmill's admissions unit. All patients brought here as emergencies are screened to see if they need to be in hospital at all. 1 in 5 are discharged without being sent to the wards, one of the highest turnaway rates in the country.
We'd send 21% of our patients home at the moment, and they tend to be the patients who need, say, specialised radiography tests, and they can come to us and have them done, and if they've got a negative result then they can go home. Previous to us being here, they would have to go to a ward, and I think by virtue of the fact that they're on a ward meant they stayed overnight at least. We get Path Lab treat all our samples as urgent samples, so the results are readily available within an hour, most of them. So we don't have that wait. We can, you know, base decision on the discharge decision on some of those results and things like that. So it just speeds things up. It gets all the investigations done all at once.
Jack Robinson is an example of how the system operates. A retired miner from Pinxton in Derbyshire, he's had a bad chest infection. His GP sent him in after an X-ray revealed a shadow on his lung. He's been given tests and assessed to ensure he's in no immediate danger. Now he's being discharged. The doctor who checked him has arranged for him to attend a specialist clinic on another day.
Thank you, Andy. Right. Thank you. I've really been quite pleased with what has happened to me today, anyway. It's all been done in a matter of 2 hours. I've been transported from home by ambulance here, and then attended to by nurse and doctor, and given permission to go home, all in 2 hours. So I'm not wrong with that.
Without the admissions unit, Jack would have had to spend at least 1 night on a ward. Yet even with the unit, the pressure for beds has been immense.
This ward looks very much like any other, but these 10 beds at Kingsmill Hospital are a deliberate attempt to solve the emergency admissions problem. This is, in effect, a porter cabin.
In all, Kingsmill has installed 3 so-called mobile wards. They're fully equipped, but their structure has made them quicker and cheaper to build. The 35 new beds are only designed to be temporary, but will come in useful when the more permanent wards are redeveloped.
The idea really is to make sure that no one is ever turned away from this hospital. We have a policy of open all hours, and we don't want to be in a position of any acute emergency patient having to be turned away. And so that's really why we open them up. Otherwise, we'd have had to compromise our surgical and elective work. And fortunately, we've not had to do that.
But such measures come at a price. The admissions unit has to be staffed, And the mobile units, although relatively cheap, have still cost £500,000. Many hospitals simply can't afford it.
We have to accept that there is a funding crisis in the NHS. I know as soon as one talks about additional funding for the NHS, somebody somewhere shouts bottomless pits, we could consume the whole of the country's wealth in the NHS. Maybe we could. That seems to me to be beside the point. The point is, can we spend some more than we are spending now?
Once he's clerked, they're going to ring the ward so he can go directly to the ward instead of coming here. But don't rub him off yet in case he hasn't been clerked.
There's no disputing the fact that the system is under strain. Actually, I think most of the people who pay for this system through their taxes would expect me to put it under pressure, that is to say, to insist that it runs efficiently. Everyone else in our society lives under pressure. I think it's important that the health service is seen to be under pressure to be efficient.
What you need to be sure is that if you fall seriously ill, the NHS is there for you when you need it. Not to be told, sorry, there's no bed here, they're all full up, there's no safety margin anymore in the NHS, you'll have to go to the other side of the country. What that means is that some people don't get the chance of life that the NHS could have given them. Often you can't necessarily say they would have lived had that bed been there, but what you can be absolutely sure of is that they never even had the chance.
In fact, Labour's calling for an immediate end to all bed closures, but the government says it's not as simple as that.
This is not an exercise of picking one priority without choices being made elsewhere. If we spent more money providing more beds, then we'd have less money to spend on the mental health services, less money, for example, to spend on the development of primary care. All of these are important priorities in the health service, and we have to balance them off against each other.
I'll just get the paperwork and then we're ready to go.
How many beds are there?
They've got 2 male and they've got a side room as well. And they've just
At Selly Oak, Michelle Shannon hands over to the night sister. She's finished her working day, but the hunt for beds goes on.
I think we need to do much more in finding out where the spare beds are. I mean, I think people watching this programme will assume that somewhere or other there is a central computer network of a bed registry, and we type in, you know, we want a spare bed please, and up on the screen will pop the answer. It's not like that. It's all down to a junior doctor or a nurse at 3 o'clock in the morning ringing a neighbouring hospital saying, can you please help us with an admission? They've then got to find the duty doctor, he could be in bed, they've got to get him up. He's then got to make a judgment about whether or not he's got a spare bed. They've then got to decide whether or not they will admit that patient. The patient then has then got to be transferred. I mean, it is really Neanderthal.
It is quite frustrating when, you know, you've sorted the patient out and you would like them to move on to, you know, onto a ward, but you just carry on.
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay. Right. Fine.
We have seen problems in recent months of doctors having to ring 8, 9, 10 hospitals to find out if they have a specific bed available. That isn't satisfactory, and I know that the Department of Health are now looking at ways in which using modern technology, really to press of a button on a computer, we ought to be able to find out whether beds are available, and I'm sure that that is something we need to do urgently.
Right, is that Park Lane off the High Street? Right, okay, and the diagnosis? Okay, doctor, just check that on the computer.
This bed bureau, run by West Midlands Ambulance Service, provides such a network for Birmingham. Staff here ring round hospitals to find beds at the request of local GPs. But doctors fear a wider network would merely encourage the sending of patients to hospitals miles from home.
Clearly there are occasions when every hospital is swamped, and you may need to have access to that sort of information to send patients to the places that have the beds. But we've very much taken the view that we want to provide a facility for our own patients and our local population. And you can imagine the chaos of people being transferred from one end of the region to the other, and all the difficulties that would entail both for the patients and for their relatives.
Many hospitals are now so short of beds that they have occupancy rates of over 100%. In other words, there are too many patients for the spaces available.
I think we need a health service where you have a local hospital that serves its community. If you have a heart attack, if you develop meningitis, if you develop pneumonia, if your child is ill, you can take it to the local hospital and they will look after it, not be in doubt whether they've got a bed for you to be admitted into. And we have an ethos at the moment that says we will run our hospitals with 100% efficiency. And what that means is if you've got 100 beds, you've got 100 patients in them. And if you're not running them like that 24 hours a day, then basically you're being inefficient. Now, I would argue you cannot run a health service in that way. I would argue that that ethos is wrong, that business type ethos or factory type ethos may be okay for dealing with inanimate objects, but it's no way to deal with sick people.
Well, Jill, what's the situation now?
Right, well, the ward is now almost full. We have got several patients still waiting down in casualty and the GP admissions unit left to come in. There's very few beds around the medical directorate. Just get that. D57 sister.
We never did get to speak to Jill again. She was too busy for the rest of the evening. If operation cancellations continue, waiting lists will rise, an unwelcome situation in the run-up to a general election. Hospital managers know that without more money, they can merely tinker with the system.
I can only see the problems growing, and I think that if there is development funding for the National Health Service, as there has been this year, we would like to see that money being spent in addressing this particular problem, because we think it's an important priority.
We have to do something, we have to do something quickly, and the most important thing, I think the common sense thing to do, is not to close any more beds.
I care about my patients. They trust me. I'm very happy to take on a 24-hour lifelong commitment to looking after them, but I need the reassurance that the technical supporting departments, the hospitals, will make themselves available when I need it, when my patients need it. The acute care, the bit that really we have to get right and maintain right at the moment, is really seriously jeopardized.
And we cannot allow it to get any worse. I mean, I think it's a time when the professionals have to stand up and say, enough is enough. This must not be allowed to continue. It's got to be addressed. We've got all the beds full. We've got people on trolleys now, and I understand the trolley manufacturers are now manufacturing long weight trolleys, which are more comfortable. So we've got people on trolleys. We've had people treated in ambulances. I mean, what are we going to do? Put tents in the car park? It doesn't bear thinking about. We've got to be sensible about it. Deal with it now.
With the rise in emergency admissions largely blamed on social factors outside anyone's control, all hospitals can do is find their own ways of coping, by assessing patients more accurately, by only doing routine operations in summer. But additional beds will need more money and trained nurses, when both are in short supply. Even when a doctor finds a bed, he doesn't always get the chance to use it. While the wider debate continues, it's only through the goodwill of such staff that hospitals can survive the current crisis.
If you'd like to take part in tonight's debate on the issues raised in the programme, call Ed Doolan now on Report Back on BBC Local Radio. We'll give you the number in just a moment.